You get in life what you have the courage to ask for. What you condone, you allow. I disappoint others to not disappoint myself. If people pleasing is the only way that I can get someone's love, I don't want that love. If I have to be the villain in someone else's story for the sake of getting peace of mind, then that is a price I'm willing to pay. I could sit here quoting, citing, paraphrasing the words of others who learned these lessons through their own experiences, and they share them with the world. And these lessons are applicable to me. I very often preach the importance of courage. You get in life what you have the courage to ask for. And anytime a friend or someone comes to me and they feel like they're not getting what they deserve or what they've earned, I'm the first thing that I would tell them is you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. So if you never ask for it, if you never fight for it, then it's not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter, right? Because the other person isn't going to be able to read your mind and know that this is something that you want. So you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. Now, before I continue on, welcome back to the pod. Today's topic is going to be boundaries. Now, silly me used to think that boundaries were black or white. I used to think that, okay, I have a general vague idea of what my boundaries are, so I should know what doesn't align with these boundaries. But the funny thing is, and this is the case with almost everything in life, it isn't until your boundary has been crossed that you, in my experience, so it isn't until your boundary has been crossed that you can really pinpoint what that boundary was and what the parameters of that boundary was, or maybe has been redefined to look like. So it isn't until it's been crossed that you can really figure out, okay, that is a hard no for me. And again, silly me used to think that it was black and white. So in the past, whenever I would find myself in situations where my boundaries were being crossed, and I would harness courage and actually stand up for myself, I used to think that, okay, woo, perfect, done. It's one and done. It's a standalone situation, so I'm going to assume that this courage is going to transfer into other moments, or that's it, I stood up for myself, I stood up for my boundaries. This one time, it means that it's a blanket standing up for myself and blanket enforcing my boundaries kind of situation. It is not. I've had experiences over the last few years, and the last year mostly, where I found myself in a lot of different situations where my boundaries were being tested. And it's not just about identifying what's a hard no, it's about identifying what's leading up to that hard no. So I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I realized that a lot of the things that I would willingly do, I would willingly give other people permission to cross my boundaries just because I didn't want to disappoint them and just because I just wanted to please them, right? That's the definition of a people pleaser. And even though in my mind I know that this makes me feel uncomfortable or I feel angry about this situation because a boundary has been crossed, I would still keep giving permission to this other person or group of people to cross my boundaries because I felt like that's the right thing to do in different situations. So I am a recovering people pleaser. There's a lot of depth that comes with this statement. I have one of my limiting beliefs is that love is conditional. So for a very long time, up until recently, I used to think, actually even up till now, it still like seeps its way into the different thought and behaviors that I exhibit, but at least it's something that I'm more conscious of right now. So being a people pleaser, having the limiting belief that love is conditional, I would always go above and beyond to serve others, whether it was in a professional setting, whether it was in a personal setting, so much so that I would do that at the expense of myself, my sanity, my peace of mind, my comfort, my freedom. And it would start to build resentment towards the other person, because I would just expect them to know that I'm uncomfortable, or I would just assume that they would know that I'm feeling frustrated or angry because they're asking me to do 1, 2, 3. But in reality, you can't expect people to read your mind, right? And what you condone, you allow. So other people will treat you in a way that you show them is okay to treat you. So if you're just giving people, they're going to keep taking because you're giving them. They're not just going to take out of nowhere, right? And I realized that, okay, it's not black and white. This is so confusing. This is very complex. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I thought that I had it right. I thought that I figured it out, that I understood what to do, but no, the lessons that, maybe not the lessons, the reflections that I've taken away from these different situations feels very like, whoa, like a slap in the face, you know? And in a good way, a slap in the face, because it made me realize that, okay, everything that is happening is literally a projection of what is going on in my mind, or what is going on in my inner world. I mean, you hear that often enough in the spiritual community, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on TikTok, that your outer world is a projection of your inner world. But it's a lot more complex than just, it is what it is. So I have found myself in the deep end of lessons and reflections when it comes to boundaries. Instead of rambling on, what I'm going to do is, I've journaled about this for the last few weeks, and I'm just going to share different snippets from my journal and then just ramble on about each snippet. This way it's kind of like a structured ramble. So the first entry is about a pattern that I have identified in my thoughts over the last year in the different situations that I have found myself in. And ironically, this specific judgment that I'm going to be talking about, I have had this judgment about multiple people over the last year, and I never realized why until I sat down and journaled about it, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've often caught myself judging X, Y, Z, because it's not just one specific person, it's a slew of people over the last few years. So I've often caught myself judging X, Y, Z for being a hypocrite. And I noticed that this word kept popping up these last few years, hypocrite. And I couldn't, for the life of me, identify that behavior in myself. Side note here, the people that you admire those specific qualities in them because you have those qualities within you, you just need to nurture them. Judgment is the same. So when you're judging, when you're projecting this judgment onto people for a specific attribute or quality, it's because you have this to some degree, in some variation, in some way in your own life, but you're judging your self-worth, or you feel guilty or shameful about it, which is why you're projecting that judgment onto them. You're judging yourself as you're judging them. I couldn't for the life of me identify that behavior in myself. I'm intentional in aligning my words and actions with others so that whenever there's a misstep, I take responsibility. In my dealings with friends or family or my parents or my sister, whenever I find that what I'm saying and what I'm doing, that there's a misalignment, I own up to it. I step in. If there's something that I did wrong, I own up to it. I say, listen, this is my mistake. I completely apologize. I should not have said this, or I should not have done that. So I'm very meticulous. I'm very intentional with making sure that what I do and what I say align. I am very intentional in making sure that I practice what I preach. So noticing that I was judging certain people, and the judgment was that they are hypocrites, this kind of threw me off guard, because I am so intentional to not be a hypocrite, or to not show any hypocritical tendencies in my behavior with others, because it's a big no for me. I think it's very inauthentic, and it's just not something that I want for myself. So this is why I make sure that I do not do this. This is why I was so caught off guard when I saw that this is the judgment that I was projecting onto other people. I couldn't for the life of me identify that behavior in my experience with others, until I realized that that behavior has been towards myself. I've been a hypocrite when it comes to myself. I preach about courage and boundaries, and I advocate for self-expression, and yet when it comes to me, that is a last resort. Front and center has been people pleasing, letting people take advantage of me, giving them the power and permission to take advantage of me, giving them permission to walk all over me without any pushback because I worry about disappointing others. Keeping things as diplomatic, rational, and objective as possible. And in doing so, I end up invalidating my own emotions and my own emotional experience. So why do I keep things as diplomatic, rational, and objective as possible? Because that's the quote-unquote enlightened thing to do. That's the spiritual thing to do. That's the mature thing to do. That is the nice or good girl thing to do. Spiritual and emotional bypassing. Fuck. I did not even realize that, and I made this realization when I was on the phone with a friend of mine and I was just rambling out loud like I'm doing now. And when I said this, I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I make it such a point to not be hypocritical and to make sure that my actions and my thoughts, they align with other people. And then it just came out of me, it's like, oh wait, but I don't do that to myself. I preach to others, yeah, you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. Someone's overstepping your boundaries, lay your boundaries down. Tell them what is a hard no. Don't give people permission to walk all over you. And yet that is what I do. I feel like a complete fucking hypocrite because I sit here, not always here on this specific couch, but like I'm sitting here, I'm preaching to people the importance of claiming their power back, the importance of championing themselves, of advocating for themselves, being expressive, vocalizing their needs, but I don't do that out of fear of disappointing people. So realizing that I was spiritually and emotionally bypassing myself was a slap in the face. And that's why I literally wrote down in my journal, fuck, with a dot at the end. I was having a conversation with a friend about this most recent experience where my boundaries were being not crossed, they were being demolished. And she told me, well, there's a lot of anger that's coming up, and let your anger speak. So if you've listened to my last episode, you'd know this. If you haven't, you're gonna know this now. I recently started therapy, and my first session with my therapist, we realized that, so I started therapy because I realized that I'm so self-aware of my emotions that I end up intellectualizing them and rationalizing my emotions instead of really feeling them and just letting them be. Like I'm always rushing to get to the other side of an emotion. And my therapist told me that maybe the hurt part of me isn't ready to move on just yet. So I've been trying to navigate my emotions recently and trying to really sit with any emotions that come up and give them the opportunity to speak their truth. So my friend, while we were having this conversation, when I realized that I'm being a hypocrite between me and myself, she told me that I need to let my anger speak. I need to give it permission to speak, and I need to listen to what it is trying to tell me. Throughout this reflective experience, I've also realized a few other things as it pertains to boundaries. 1, boundaries and their triggers are a spectrum. I said earlier, boundaries were black or white, a hard yes or a hard no. But what I'm realizing with time and with life experience is that it's a spectrum. One specific boundary can have multiple different spectrums to it, different layers, different degrees, different variations. And now at the lower end of the spectrums, where it's kind of like the least resistance areas, where you start to feel that initial twinge of resistance, I believe that those are areas of growth and transformation. So let's say you do not like to receive emails or text messages about work after office hours and over the weekends. So you're gonna get that initial twinge of why are they texting me or why are they emailing me and all of these things. So you're starting to feel this, the boundary could be freedom. You like to have your freedom outside of working hours. You wanna keep your work life separate from your home life or your social life. So this could be what the main boundary is, but you're on the lower end of the spectrum, and the first twinge is, okay, they're messaging me or they're emailing me outside of office hours. So you could let this continue to build up resistance and resentment, Or this could be, because it's a least resistance side of the spectrum, this could be an area of growth and transformation. And what you could do is you could really express the importance of your boundaries and inform these people, listen, you can email me, but I'm going to keep my notifications off so that I don't receive anything outside of office hours. Or please do not text me if it's about work. If it's about work, don't text me on my private number. Just send it on Slack or send it by email, and I will look into it when I'm back in the office or when I'm back within office hours. See, this is the first twinge of resistance. I don't even know if I'm using the word properly, twinge. So this is the first sign of resistance, but this is also an area of growth and transformation, because this is a good baby step to practice setting your boundaries. Now, the higher you move up the spectrum is when you're getting closer to a hard no. Boundaries, they come in different degrees, variations, and layers. They're complex. They come with a whole lot of intricacies. Reflection number 2. You are never going to receive validation from the offender, from the person who crossed your boundaries. They will never acknowledge that they fucked up. So if you're looking to them for validation, if you're looking to them to be seen or heard, you're going to be waiting a long fucking time. Dad, if you're listening to this, sorry for cursing. Mom doesn't really mind, but dad is very nitpicky. If you do look to them, they'll evade blame, they'll gaslight you, or even if they do take a little bit of responsibility, you'll realize that it was just words and you're not going to find any relief from the words coming from them. So it's very rare that I've ever experienced a situation where my boundary was crossed. I spoke up and the other person said, okay, you're right. I overstepped your boundaries. I should not have done that. It's, I think, 1 in 10 in my experience, but 9 times out of 10, the first thing that they'll do is that they'll get defensive, they'll start to blame you, or they'll start to gaslight you, anything to just not have to take responsibility for their own actions. But also, that's the thing. What you condone, you allow. So the only reason that they have continuously crossed your boundaries is because you have allowed them to, because you have showed them that it is okay for them to cross your boundaries. Point number 3, validate yourself. Lean on family and friends you trust. The people who always validate you and care for you and have your best interests at heart and will always tell you the truth because they have nothing to lose in validating you. They have nothing to lose in validating you. I have my parents, I have my sister, I have a small group of people that I trust, and I trust them that when I tell them something, they would tell me, no, you're wrong, and I would not take offense to that. And I trust them enough that when I tell them something, they would tell me, no, you're absolutely right. You have every right to feel angry, and they would get angry for me. They will tell you the truth because they have nothing to lose in validating you. Your offender does. They lose power and they lose control over you. Don't let your peace of mind and peace of heart be contingent upon receiving validation from your offender, because otherwise you'll never get that peace. No expectations. Now, I know this sounds very bleak and it sounds very dark and it sounds very depressing to say no expectations, but it's not. Oh, and I actually wrote a note about this down. Okay, cool, perfect. This is not to paint the world a bleak color. Bleak, used bleak twice, nice. Quite the opposite. This is a reminder that you are the only one capable of advocating for yourself. So I would always say that well, not always, as if I've been saying it for all of my life, but I mean recently, I would say that if I have to be the villain in someone else's story just to get my peace of mind, then that's a role that I would gladly step into. But it isn't until I was actually put in that situation that I felt like, okay, shit, do I really want to be the villain? Like, let me find a different way, a more diplomatic way or a gentler way of dealing with the situation. I mean, okay, my boundary was crossed. So what? It's my fault. They didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who gave them permission. I'm the one who didn't say no, or I'm the one who said yes too many times. I'm the one who didn't speak up or express myself. I can't assume that they know how to read my mind. I can't assume that they can read my mind and that they just know what is right or what is wrong. I would just constantly invalidate myself because I did not want to be put in a confrontational situation. I did not want to disappoint people, especially if I felt like this is someone that I genuinely look up to or someone that I like. But that's another thing that I learned. You always have a choice. So my people pleasing is a choice. I subconsciously choose it, but I choose it. Disappointing myself to not disappoint others is a choice. It's conditioned thought and behavior patterns, but in the moment, I am choosing to do X, Y, Z. I am choosing to open my email after hours. I am choosing to open up, let's say, Slack over the weekend. It is a choice because I don't want to seem like I'm not a team player. I don't want to seem like I don't really care enough about this specific thing that I'm working on, or I don't want to seem like I'm unprofessional. So you have a choice. Everything is a choice. And while people pleasing has been a choice, it is a choice. Stepping into, for lack of a better word, stepping into my villain era is also a choice. People often mistake kindness with weakness, but that's a choice. So my choosing to be kind with someone is a choice. It's not a sign of weakness, because just as I have chosen to be kind, I can choose to be the villain. And I do not want to do that. The people pleaser in me does not feel very comfortable with me saying this out loud, but stepping into my villain era, if that's what I need to fucking do for peace of mind, and if that is going to cost me professional or personal relationships, then that's a price that I'm really ready and willing to pay. Because I have spent many, many years at the mercy of other people, because I thought that by doing what they wanted, that they would love me unconditionally. And the moment that I did one thing differently, they would stop loving me, they would be disappointed, they would be upset, or they would leave me. And I used to think that that meant that there was something wrong with me, because I'm the common denominator in all of these different relationships and all of these different experiences. But I think it's just been teaching me that, and this is gonna sound so, I don't know if it's a millennial thing to say or it's a Gen Z thing to say, but I realized that I've been playing the supporting role in my life, and I'm ready to be the main character of my own life. And this is actually coming at perfect timing. It's December, the year is wrapping up, you have a lot of reflections, you have a lot of intentions for the new year, and I kind of like that. The new year, or just like moving forward, because it's technically before Christmas and New Year's resolutions is still a few weeks away. But I think taking a few weeks to really sit with the different intentions and let them marinate and figure out what you want out of your life moving forward for the next year. Mine being main character energy, stepping into my villain era if I have to, if I choose to. Because sometimes I enjoy people pleasing, okay? Honestly, sometimes I enjoy it. I enjoy doing something and then seeing a smile on someone's face or a show of appreciation. I like making people happy, okay? It used to be that my life depended on it before. It doesn't depend on it now. Now it's a choice that I'm making. I said at some point that I'm a recovering people pleaser. No, not recovering. I am a people pleaser, and I fucking love that about me, okay? And on that note, thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day, have a beautiful week, and see you next time.